When we meditate, it's like we have an experience. We choose to have an experience of awareness apart from the 3D materiality or the physicality, the body-mind unit, so that we are reminded. For me, the glory, the purpose, the fulfillment of meditating is that spaciousness of awake awareness, which is where we actually are always, and within which arises a body-mind unit, a 3D reality. And so meditation is probably our doorway. It's something that feeds us energetically and in consciousness, and it's considered a spiritual practice. In one group this week, I think, I may have dreamt this, this may not have actually happened, but in my mind, I talked about how what we're doing as we awaken is that we're dispelling and dissolving all of the categories of this reality, so that there's not an out there and an in here, so that there's not a material world and a spiritual world, so that it's all one thing, and knowing how things arise and show up there, and how we get to a play in this 3D reality, but it's not other than awareness. Consciousness is cause. Consciousness is the everything. It is what is, and then there is the shape. There are the objects that show up. As awareness, we experience consciousness without an object, often in meditation. Sometimes in meditation, realities arise, images arise, ideas, thoughts, whatever, and they people of the realm that we access as awareness when we meditate, when we make the conscious decision to go inward, and in that inwardness, we find eternity. We find infinity. We find that everything arises there. And so we come back to this space, now once more, focused or identified with being a body-mind unit. And so the awakening process is what I call a shift in identity. We wake up out of the limited perception of being a body-mind unit, and we wake up into the field of awareness that is the one I am. And that's true of each of us. I sometimes make a kind of, maybe it's not that humorous, but I point to, in the Old Testament, we were given the name of God, and it was, I am that I am. And it continues to baffle us. It's like, that just doesn't land, right? But that was the awareness, awakening awareness, offering us the truth of who we are. We are the awareness in which realities arise. I am that. The distinction with the body-mind unit, or I should say the distinction from the body-mind unit and the awareness, is that the body-mind unit is what we have, and awareness is what we is. Awareness is who I am, and the body-mind unit is the operating vehicle to participate in a 3D reality. And so the fundamental, I think that, I'm not sure this is true, but it seems to me that the reason we call it waking up is that we've been in a dream where we've identified with the dreamed character that we call me. And so what waking up is knowing that I am the one who's created this. I am the one who's created this character and these circumstances and this drama and these apparent others that I'd love to play with. So we have realities that show up just as we do in dream time. I've often said that I believe the reason that we dream is to give us a little bit of an awareness of what we're doing when we think of ourselves as being awake. We're creating realities. We're in dream time with these characters, with this storyline. And so as we have installed our insistence on being this body, this mind, this victim, this perpetrator, this caretaker, this mother, this father, this sister, this one. Characters, all in a movie. In our dream time, we sometimes have these kinds of shifts in identity. We may experience ourselves as being a person in a dream time excursion who is being chased or who's chasing, right? And that dream time, that's real. Does everybody agree that that's our experience, right? If you wake up after, like in the morning, after a dream, or in the middle of a dream at night, and you're like, whoa, there were 43 people here, and 2 guys, and one of them was my best friend, and the other one was my romantic partner, and then we did this and we did that, and there's been a whole reality there. It may have even partaken of a timeline. Like we may have had a sense that when the dream started, we were in a situation, and then it had a narrative trajectory of having come fulfilled, or things occurred. Not unlike this that we say is reality, is it? And so the waking up is to wake up to knowing ourselves as the awareness in which everything arises, including the body mind that we identify with and call me. It happened to me. He did it to me. I'm the one that got that reward, that present, that gift, that friendship, that lover. I am the one. When we identify with the character, then that's where suffering is, because the reason that this is a high bar probably, but all of you have heard this from me. All of you on the Zoom and in the room today have heard this from me. The way your reality shows up is dependent on who you take yourself to be. We have a world that reflects the one I take myself to be. It's not an objective reality that I would agree with Robin or with Becky or with anybody in here that this is the way it is. Each one of us has our version of reality, right? Whatever it is. When we have a distortion lens that comes from the early wounding, and that's the reason that we put the light over and over and over on whatever the conclusion was, so that we can start to dispel it, because it was the conclusion, sometimes pre-verbally, often by a toddler, an unavoidable conclusion about me. It created the me. It created the me that can't get what she wants. It created the me that daddy doesn't pay attention to. So that creation occurred, that got installed. So what we're about in the waking up process is to start to, it's like I sometimes say, reaching out your arms and reclaiming your attention from out there, because out there is a projection. Nothing's going to be corrected out there. It will appear to, because the projection, and this is, I think of as the cosmic joke, is based in polarity. So at some point you'll get everything, but then you'll lose everything. And even when you're getting everything that you want, that you think you want, there's the underpinning feeling that I could lose it. I better hold on tight, because the other end of the stick of not having what you want is at play in that polarity. Does this make sense to everybody? Yeah. Yeah, so there's no correction for the problem out there. Out there is a projection. And so we, in this work that we do, the work is to see that we've believed that we were a me, that could get some things and not others, a me that was good enough or not good enough, quite good enough, not the one who got to have the partner lover that she wanted. Because underneath there, if there's a belief I'm not good enough, then that's a part of your projection. So one part of this teaching is whatever it is that you want, you be that. Sometimes when I work with people who are interested and motivated by the idea of having the partner, and I say, if you had the partner that was the perfect partner, what would you get? And they give me a description. And then all of you on here know this. What I do is I say, you be that to yourself on your own behalf. And it will then show up in your world. Or if it doesn't, you will not be lacking it. You have it. So we be the world that we want to inhabit. And as that is source, cause in the matter of our reality, it's absolutely dependable. Nothing else really is. The idea that I need to get something and is a frequency of I need to get something. It's not the frequency of having. So we are immersed in a brilliant hall of mirrors that we have access to through who we take ourselves to be. And so that's what the 6 steps are for, because everything that's a problem, everything that creates a distortion for you is projected through what I think of as a lens that's inscribed, that's distorted by the early wounding. And so through being triggered, through being caught up in things that we don't want, we start to look at who is it who has those. And in that, we begin to clear out the illusion of being a fear-based me. When that happens, then that is, you're awake to your true nature now. I am the awake awareness, and I have this body-mind unit with its gifts and its talents, its limitations, the power of limits to create specifically. I'm not going to be everything in this lifetime, but I'm a hell of a good artist, right? And so the power of limits play out for a 3D reality. Make sense? Yeah. So we can love who we are, but only after we've seen through what we installed early on, unavoidably, when mommy didn't pick us up from kindergarten on time, or we were left with a babysitter who then found better things to do and left us all alone. And we were 3 years old. And we were bereft, and we concluded that meant something about us. So we all understand how these things get installed. What is the high bar is to stop identifying with the things you created that created this me. To see through the unavoidable conclusion, I'm not good enough, when you were left alone without what you needed. And that conclusion got installed. That's what creates the distortion field. And now you have a world that proves to you over and over that you're not good enough, that you don't matter. Or sometimes, just to confuse things, we get the other end of the stick. So our job in waking up is to come home to our true nature as awareness. And what that means is I am not this body-mind unit. I am aware of it. I have it. I operate through it. But this is not who I am. I know who I am. I am the awareness, without which I wouldn't know about this body-mind unit. Without the awareness, you don't know nothing about this reality, about the apparent other, about the possibilities for creativity, for fun, for aliveness. Awareness is the sea we swim in, but when we locate and identify with the limited me, then that awareness can only reveal to us through the lens that is the distortion lens, the limitation of that creation. It can seem to be only within us, with self-judgment and self-criticism, which much of the time we find it necessary to project onto others, just so that we won't have to feel it so much ourselves, right? All judgment is self-judgment. So one of the benefits of that is that sometimes in judging others, we can recognize the teeny tiny little part in us that is that way. And so the information that we conclude about out there, about situations, about circumstances, about apparent other people, is information about ourselves. And it's an amazing opportunity to come home and to clear out what was an unavoidable but never true conclusion about yourself. And that's what waking up is, waking up to the one I am and living out of that. That's how we create heaven on earth. That's the way this reality changes. It changes energetically, frequency-wise, as we come home to connect and love the one I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions, ahas, desire to do the work. What's here?
So Polly, when you get to that level of awareness, of awakening, what's the role of self-love? If my work is to dissolve the self here and be the awareness, the awake one, how you place the self-love that we always think that is so important for revolution?
Right. Well, it's once you are awake, there aren't the questions because there's nothing else but that. Right. And so it arises, like I said, it's like a fountain. It arises and overflows. But there's no longer, you see, in our true nature, there's not the pairs of opposites. There's not the underlying frequency of fear. And so from that place, we're free to express, to request, to connect, to live freely and fully. And it's all love. That's what's true. We've made these little side excursions into polarity, into fear. And then we've had the result of that in this 3D reality that is so polarized now. We don't want to talk about that, but it's, it moves. It's no longer a question.
Yeah.
Makes sense, Lynn?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm feeling. It's like the self that you perceive here start to dissolve.
That's right.
So we don't need self-love anymore
No,
because all
exactly.
it is love.
All there is love.
But the self-love feels so great after the self-criticism that we're so used to. I'm actually really impressed how much I'm beginning to love myself quite passionately.
Right.
And I'm kind of surprised when you're saying you could actually fall in love with your own being.
That's right.
And holy moly, no wonder this is so much fun.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. And it's in that appreciation for the body-mind unit, right? Because now you're not judging, you're not criticizing. You know, this is the program that Robin and I are doing on Awakening Through Human Design. You can get a sense of how your vehicle operates. We call it the owner's manual, right? Or like right now, I'm looking out to the degree that I can look out and see all these different cars here. It's like we all picked out different vehicles, right? But the appreciation for those comes with our acknowledging what is true about them. I am not that. That's what I have. People ask me with being, well, Lily's older than I am, but being an older person, how do you deal with aging? And I said, I treat this body like I would a beloved pet. And we know that Yoda gets better treatment than anybody on the planet. So there's a high bar here for treating your beloved pet, right? But that's the way of it. It's something that you have, and it's with great love and appreciation that you have it. But it's changing, it's morphing, it's mutating, it's doing whatever it does. But the other part of this, which is really a potent understanding, is the body takes the hit of whatever the mind holds. If the mind is judging me or is against me, the frequency in the body of self-rejection ends up being a hormonal issue. It ends up being autoimmune issues. And so our awakening to our true nature is a total blessing to the vehicle, to the body mind.
So are you saying, I'm just following Linda and Lily, so ultimately there is no self-love because there is no self, there is only love, ultimately.
Right.
But on the way there, as we stop judging ourselves, which means we're going to stop judging other people, as we start self-loving, then we open to loving others, and that's kind of backing into that other.
Right.
Do I have that? Would you say it that way?
Right. And all there really is love. There are demarcations like we have with a 3D reality and the vehicles of body mind units, right? I think that love is what there is, and there are expressions of it that are depend on proximity, that depend on appropriate connection. But all of it is the frequency of love, because that's what is. So the movement toward allowing the self-judgment to fall away, then all judgment falls away. And then the experience in the awakened state is of having all of reality arise in the one I am, right? And so now the experience, the expression, the interaction depends again on proximity. It might depend on a label like mommy, daddy, sister, brother, friend, lover. It might depend on that, but it carries the frequency of love, which is one, that frequency is no separation. I think it's in the Old Testament when they talk about the sexual union being to know. David knew Bathsheba. It's to be one with. When you wake up out of the illusion of being this vehicle, then that you don't experience separation. It's so much, it's just an arising of reality and an overflowing, and you tell what is the natural expression by proximity. You know, I mean, all of us are here together. We feel the sense of connection, the feel of love of the Sangha, love of the family, all of the Sun Tzu, right? That's why people gather. It's to have the experience of myself as this love body looking like all of you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was good. That'll be good for class on Monday too. So Lindsay, you had your hand up. Are you still wanting to?
Yes, sure. Hi, Polly. Hi, all. So my question is really, and kind of flowing from what you were saying with frequency and the frequency of love. Thinking about efforting, and I know we've talked about this many different ways before, but thinking about moving from efforting into living from that higher frequency of I am in the connectivity. And I think, yeah, as everything arises and moving from, like, for example, money, like moving from the mechanical means into living from that I have less of a question, just more of a whatever arises for you with it, but moving from that mechanical method into more so of just the space of allowing and not the efforting, but it doesn't mean you're not taking action per se. So yeah, just kind of that intersection.
Yeah, well, all of us love doing whatever we love to do. We love doing it. What's happened in the fear-based reality is that doing has been imposed because that equation comes into play. You have to make a living. Right? And so the relief from that is in the understanding of how the frequency is informing your external reality. Looking like money, looking like friends, looking like a lack of money, a lack of friends, whatever it looks like. But the frequency is arising here as we no longer identify with what fear created, which is the body-mind unit identity. I'm not good enough, I don't matter. And who I know myself to be. And with that frequency shift out of polarity, out of fear, then the world shows up differently, right? We have been in this 3D reality, which if we attribute, as a legend of the fall, that it occurred when we moved out of the heart as a sense of connection to all of reality and elevated into our minds, into the polarity, into the reasoning, into the rational analytic out of the heart, then the frequency of fear entered in because it's not safe to not be connected. And that's what we gave up with the fall. We gave up the experience of connection, of the oneness. And we went into, now we have botany and biology instead of a garden and friendly animals, right? So we moved out of the intuitive, connecting sense of the truth of who we are and moved into a mind and found immediately that part of what resided there was guilt and fear. And then that's a frequency that creates having to get something, having to correct something, having to move into a cause and effect reality where we have to be right in order to be good and effective. And when other people are wrong, we need to cut them out. So all that came about is metaphorically taught in the garden story. And this frequency thing that we've been talking about, Lindsay, has to do with the shift into, it doesn't mean that you don't do anything, that you don't love the work that you do, or that you don't find work that you love and a community of shared beings who share that. But the frequency that's showing up as your world, not to judge yourself because of it, but receive the information of it, right? If I feel like there's a lot of conflict, a lot of people who have problems with me and I with them, then I know that that's a particular frequency. And I might need to do the 6 steps, which would reveal to me what I installed early on that might be in fruition now, looking like people who are conflictual. I don't think I answered your question.
Well, I didn't really have a question, so that was helpful. That was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, sweetie. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Can you say more about the problems being created, the reality being created by our actions?
Right. Well, if you see, if we believe that this reality is based in cause and effect at the material level, right? And then we're going to be engaged in moving shit around on the deck of the Titanic, basically. It's like, get the deck chairs straight here, guys. So it's like what happens if we are caught up in the external 3D reality and try to get it straightened out there, then we are caught in a frequency of the need for control, which is underpinned by fear. So the way it functions is that typically what happens is that for a minute, it looks like things are better. It's like what I've pointed to with these kinds of, I usually use the Big Island. I'm not even sure if this is true. I believe that the coqui frogs were brought into the Big Island to get rid of the mosquitoes. And now we all know what the coqui frogs on the Big Island do, right? And you have to love the cacophony at night if you're going to sleep, right?
Right.
So at the rational analytic, every solution that we impose, which is motivated by the need for fear, the need for control because of fear, will create 10 more problems. Because it's just the frequency is going to prevail. Right? So if we are back-seated and expressing through our own heart clarity on our own behalf, I know who I am. I am the awake awareness in which realities arise. I am at home with myself. This experience and expression of home that is, what we could say that it's for each one of us, but the truth is that it's the same home that's shared by all of us. And so it's a grand experiment that I believe humanity is engaged in now, much because of technology and the proliferation of the idea of frequency as cause, for one thing, right? And so, and the irony is that you can't fake a frequency. Yeah. You can't you can see a little 2-year-old trying to get control of mommy and daddy, right? But you can't fake a frequency. So you have to come to yourself. You have to relax. You have to be kind here, and then your world shows up differently. Yeah.
So thank you, Polly. So there's two things. Linda does want to do a piece of work, but before we go there, Deborah said something that I really liked quite a bit. She said, my experience is that true nature is the one that loves my little self. It is so beautiful.
That's lovely. Yeah.
So that kind of is my experience when I do the work,
All right.
that my awareness holds.
That's right.
That's where the quote unquote self-love is. It's the love of.
Right. Well, you are the one that little self is waiting for. You as awareness and coming and shining the light on that little one. It's like that's the little one that enters the kingdom of heaven because it's freed up from the imposition of the early wounding conclusion. That's beautiful, Deborah. Thank you.
So Linda, are you coming on camera or are you staying off camera?
Yeah, I'll come on camera. A little dark in the background, but hi everyone.
Hey, Linda.
So Polly, I've been doing really well with post Hurricane Helene, and I'm noticing tonight. I thought I'd work this through, but there's this trigger coming up. So, I lost a lot of trees on my property. They came down and I've had tree people come, chop them up and throw the debris in the woods because I'm on a slope and there wasn't the resources to carry it up to the road where supposedly at some point, someday, it's going to be picked up. And I don't even know if that's going to happen. So right now I'm watching the fear. It's like I have been really free of fear. The fear is coming up because we haven't had any rain, that all this debris, and there's debris everywhere, all over the county, we're going to have fires and we're just, everything's going to burn. So here it comes. It's like, and I need to get down there and I need to haul these logs up to the road myself, which is, it's a lot of work. So I'm just, I just, all of a sudden the fear is just grabbing me.
So the fear is the fear of fire and
Fear of fire, ex-Californian, here I am.
Yeah.
And here people, blow their leaves into the woods and you throw your debris in the woods, but we're having a dry spell. So the fear of fire, fear of
Mhm.
the woods catching on fire, my house catching on fire, and yeah, like that.
Yeah. Well, always what comes to mind when we're talking about these kinds of collective catastrophic concerns is the quote from Byron Katie. She says, if you want to be in terror, get a future.
Yeah, and that is so interesting because I have been so much in the present for the last 4 weeks.
Yes, I know that you have. I've seen, we've had some little exchanges and I know you've been remarkable in that way. And that's, it's like when we tell ourselves the truth, I mean, that shit can happen. We know here on Maui that it can. I lived in Oregon. I know it can. I was evacuated from fire once. So it's like, it's not that it can't happen, but it's like, in what way am I participating in a larger, and our minds would say better outcome, but that's not the point. You see, reality has a life of its own. We participate in it through our frequency and our calmness, the spaciousness within our awake awareness is our contribution, a high frequency contribution to outcome. It's not that you can do it to get it, but when you are, and your practice over this whole cycle since that hurricane has been amazing, but you need to continue it now because it's good. It's the only thing that pays off. It pays off with great dividends. It pays off immediately with our own peace, right? Like if before the hurricane you could have figured out or what was going to happen, you would have been in terror then. But in the reality of it, you were present and doing what was in front of you to do in a very coherent, connected way,
So
right?
she did ask. about
Yeah,
the
it was
steps.
beautiful.
Okay. So you want to do the 6 steps on the fear of fire?
Sure, let's do it.
Let's do it.
So I'm triggered and it's all about me. And the feelings that come up are panic, terror, completely out of control. Yeah, that's what I'm just feeling. And it's not even happening. It's just the trigger evokes just utterly. And then there's something about after everything I've been through, then this. So the whole story just like so out of control. And there's some almost like resentment or something, but mostly terror and feeling out of control.
Right. Well, that resentment goes to the edge of what you just pointed to, the victim, when's enough kind of thing. Yeah, and the human mind is just excellent at that. Yeah, so those feelings of concern for the future, for panic, being out of control, using those feelings, what's an early memory of feeling that same one? It may have been pre-verbal, I don't know.
Okay, so it's like it's actually my mom's, but I remember I was probably 3 or 4 and I was in the kitchen and my father had left and she caught a fire in the oven, and she totally panicked.
Right.
And I don't know if that was before or after our garage had burned down. So there was just this, and it was even I as a child knew her panic was bigger than what was true. I mean, I wasn't but her panic and terror that she was going to catch the house on fire. Yeah.
Right. When that happened, you concluded it meant something about you, maybe about a fire, about responsibility. You concluded
Yeah, it was
about
something like
yourself.
I have to, all right, I'm not quite at the conclusion, but I have to handle her because she's out of control.
Right.
And I failed. So I mean, it feels like the whole theme of it is just powerlessness.
Right.
Like I feel
And I
completely
think-
powerless.
Yeah, I think that the little Linda felt and concluded about herself with the mother going into panic. She probably concluded something in the area of it's all up to me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the feeling of that when you're 3 years old and in the midst of fire and an incompetent mother has got to feel like it's too much, it's overwhelming, it's too much.
Yeah, it's up to me. It's
Mhm.
too much, and I can't. And it's like, and I can't. I'm gonna fail. Like it's up
Exactly.
to me, and I can't
That's
do
right.
it.
That's right. So this situation now with the possibility of these fires is bringing all of that into your experience right now. Exactly the same thing.
Mhm.
You're going out of the past, you're projecting into the future. If this were to happen and you're there in your house alone, you're recreating that early experience with that conclusion that was unavoidable, but never
Yeah.
true.
And it's like my mom was in the house alone with 2 kids, and I'm in my house alone with my 2 kitties. Same thing.
There you go. Right. Yeah, so now we're having the opportunity to revisit a very impacting situation and conditions that installed in you a belief about yourself. It's all up to me and I can't do it. Now, when the hurricane came, for some reason, it didn't, I think that the fire is the key here, you know, that the threat right now is fire. It brings back that whole early conclusion. I forgive myself for ever having believed that it's all up to me and that I can't do it.
Yeah, I forgive myself for ever believing it's all up to me and I can't do it. And from, this awake awareness, I see, oh, what do I see? It's like I just see this little one who's trying to hold like Atlas, the whole world on her, and it's not her job.
Right, exactly. So,
And then I go into this place of, oh, well, let's see what happens next. I mean, it's not passive, but it's not fighting. It's
that's right.
just being back to being with.
Perfect. Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, the opening into, I know who I am. I know what I believed about myself and what that scenario was when I was 3 years old. But this is, I know who I am now. I am the awareness that's shining on that past thing, that conclusion out of that past incident. And the reality now is totally available for a totally different experience, because you do know who you are.
I do know who I am. And one of the biggest gifts of this period has been how I've been so in the moment, just responding and doing what needed to be done that was in front of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what difficult circumstances bring to us, is the opportunity to not go into our minds. So good work, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. So
Beautiful.
we have about 6 minutes left before we go into meditation. Anyone have a question for Polly or something you'd like to share, an aha, curiosity? Yeah, Robert.
So early on, I think you said that each of us has our own reality. Does that sound?
Mhm.
So
I can go for that.
So there's not one fixed reality or truth.
Mhm.
I hate to say this, but so we each have alternate facts. We each have alternate facts.
Yeah.
8 billion.
That's why it's a mess.
Yeah, so you can make, just as an example of that, just from where you're sitting and you're looking into the shared space here, each person in here is seeing it from a different perspective. And there would be different conclusions, right? What we might call facts, or not, but it's, yeah, I guess God wanted a kaleidoscopic view of reality, and so he proliferated this whole, all of these apparently individual body mind units. But but we do not see the world as it is. There is a reality, there is one. But we will receive it and see it until we are no longer identified with a fear-based identity, at which point we do not feel separate from it. And that's the world that is. But we don't see the world as we are. We do see the world as we are, not as it is. And that's the point of that understanding. Is there more about that?
No, that's,
I have something.
Yes,
So who is this God that you're talking about?
you.
So when you say,
That's who, you, it's you.
oh, good, right now that you got that straightened out.
Yeah, there are a lot of people in here who'd like to talk to you. Yeah, that's why the name of God is I am. And you know yourself as the creator, the creative energy in your experience, don't you? Yeah. But there's only one of us, and yeah, so just to make things confusing.
So Polly, I have a question. It's Kathy.
Kathy,
I recognize that I tend to discount what's easy for me and emphasize what's hard. And like last week, someone I was talking to said, well, you're one of the best manifestors I know. And I said, I only have 5 people in my retreat. Like, what are you talking about? You know, and then she was like, well, how many retreats have you had this year? And I said 6. And she was like, but I don't look at that. I look at like the part that's like the hump I have to get over.
Mhm.
And I recognize that like in ballet, I think there's an element of this where like it was never quite good enough, right? Okay, your head looks good now, but now your arms, right? Or no, lift that leg just an inch higher. You can do it, right? And it was never like that's why I quit. That's why I stopped, because it was like crazy making for me to like never quite be there. And until on stage, then you could let go of all that and just be. And that was transcendent. But I think there's an element of that where like I'm just trying to maneuver things to get good enough, I guess.
Right. So I'm triggered.
I'm triggered, frustrated. Well then, you know, we had that conversation, and then 2 people, like one lady from Boston, she said I was looking for a retreat and like you showed up several places and I want to come. And then and someone from Maui, and then like I'm writing back to them and my mental voice is like, don't fuck it up, right? Like
Right.
which I didn't, right?
You were your ballet teacher standing there with a stick tapping on your foot. Yeah.
So frustrated.
Yeah.
There's this element of like pushing. I don't know what that is. Sad.
So sadness and frustration and feeling like a need, you're pushing. like you're efforting, right?
Well, yeah, but I also have the dance of like letting the larger awareness do it and taking the inspired action, but then also like the dance of going back to like me the doer.
Right,
But there's both.
yeah, so it's a back and forth now, right, for you,
Yeah.
right? And so you're still, and typically what happens is that we get triggered by something on the outside that pops us back into the doer.
Yeah, like the emails that come in, yes, I'm interested, I wanna come, like, and then my mind is like, don't fuck this up, you know, like.
Right, right.
Don't say the wrong thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so at some point in your early experience, you believed something about yourself that will probably encapsulate that entire arc you just described, right? What you started off with a belief about yourself, like it's hard if I do it, or I don't value something that's
That's
easy.
easy, yeah.
Right,
And
yeah.
most things have been easy, honestly, like school was so easy, and then I would look at tests and be like, well, they must be trying to trick us because this is too easy,
Mhm.
right? And like look for the place where they're messing with us. Yeah.
And that points to the polarity of that identity. So on the good end of the stick, that was it. In ballet, you got to the other end of the stick, right? But it's your self-perception that we're looking for here.
Okay. Oh. So in this, what just popped in also is when I quit, the Russian person I could never please was also like, to tell you the truth, I am very disappointed in you that you quit. You know, so then you're like, well, I can't please you if I am or if I am, if I'm not.
Right.
Um. mm,
I think that's the conflict, the right there. It's like no matter what I do, I can't get it right. So do you have an early memory of that? That probably was in the home space before the ballet teacher.
um. It's very vague and I just remember something to the effect of like my dad is creating a porch, like building it with someone out of brick. And like either I can't help or can't get attention or I can't get something. And it's frustrating.
Mhm. How old were you?
Maybe 4.
Mhm. When that was going on, that frustration and that whole interaction, like you were aware of a lot of what was going on, you're also aware that you couldn't participate. You concluded something about yourself. And it may have been in the arena of, I can't do it because I don't know how, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not right.
It feels like something like I'm not big enough,
Mhm.
and it's very frustrating.
Right, that's right. For a child at 4, the experience of I'm not big enough translates into something about them. What occurs to you that you might have concluded about yourself? It's like we take the blame for not being big enough,
Hmm.
right?
Um. It's really about there's something I don't get,
Mhm.
right? Like I'm laughing because it's like the same thing over and over again.
That's
Yeah.
why I'm smiling. It's
Yeah,
something I need to know that I can't or don't know.
I forgive myself for ever having decided there's something I need to know that I can't know. Know the truth. I know what I am. And the loving awareness in which all realities arise.
And so it is. We're getting rid of that one layer at a time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Okay,